welcome to the About Us series, where we are going to be talking about various subjects and various topics. And Stithton Baptist Church is just laying out what we believe about it. Today's topic is, what is the church? There's a passage in Matthew 16:18 where Jesus says, "On this rock I will build my church, and the gates of hell shall not prevail against it." Whoa, right? That's a pretty big statement, Jesus. What sort of secret weapon is Jesus leaving for us, right? This is a pretty powerful statement, and I think that we should take it with the power that it deserves, right? So is church just a building? Like, did Jesus supply buildings to the church? And the answer that we have to say is, if we look at the text, is no. Actually, we don't go into church and walk out of church. The better question to what is the church is, who is the church, right? And so we get that when we look into the Greek in the New Testament when they use the word church. And the word for that is ekklesia. This word literally means the ones who have been called out for the work of the ministry. Now, that's a radical idea. That means that we don't go to church on Sunday. That means that we are the church when we're gathered with other believers, right? The church is a people. Are these people from a particular area, speak a certain language, are they like-minded? What brings these people together? What makes them the ecclesia? And the answer to that is the Spirit of God is the unifier. The disciples are as culturally distant as you can be. Yes, they were both Jews, but within that we had a zealot and we had a tax collector, right? Those two people would have hated each other. It would have been comparable to say the hatred between those two groups would have been comparable to, say, a Nazi and a Jewish person during the Holocaust, right? Like, that's a pretty distant group culturally, right? But there's something that binds all of God's people that's greater than looks, schools of thought, ethnic origin, or political affiliation. We are called out people. Where 2 or 3 are gathered is where the church is. Do you think it's kind of an interesting statement where he says, where 2 or 3 gathered, that's where I am. The church is where God is. And so when we're with other people, when we're with other Christians specifically, we church together. We actually church around the dinner table at our house when we talk about Jesus and when we pray together. And when we meet together for a Bible study, we don't go to a building necessarily. We embody the Spirit of God in community. The capital C church, there's this distinction that we make sometimes in church of the local congregation, which is the lower C church, and the capital C church. The capital C church spans across age, ethnic origin, location, time even, that we are actually connected and are part of the same church, not local church, but same church as the Apostle Paul was, or any of the other early founders or apostles. The function of the ecclesia is a missional people, that we start as an inward group coming together, but that we are an outward directional mission-oriented people. The importance of the local congregation. So it's critical to realize that we aren't that this church isn't the only church, but that there's actually other local congregations that make up the capital C church. But it's really important in the New Testament, the emphasis of the local church, right? In Acts, the local churches all throughout Ephesus, like in Ephesus and in Corinth and in Philippi, Paul spends a good amount of time at those local congregations, finding ways to reach their community, right? That they're little lights, little beacons of light in dark communities. So we're going to be honest that our hope is that you find a place that helps you to become all that God created you to be. That we believe this assumption that God actually created you for community. You will thrive, you will know Christ best, you will be everything that you created to be when you're in community with other Christians. Not just coming on Sundays and seeing them, but being truly known intimately by people who also believe in Jesus and want to see you refined and sanctified into his image. That's not just Stithton. If you find another church that does that extremely well and God's calling you to go there, then we want you to be there. If Stithton's the place that you feel like that's where you need to be, and that God's working in and through you in this place, then we want nothing more than to be your church home. But that's what the ecclesia is. It's a missional people where God's people come together and meet and refine each other and become all God created them to be, and that's our hope for you today.